Hey, welcome back to Mike's Gun World. Today, I want to do a complete disassembly and assembly of a Mossberg Maverick 88 12 gauge shotgun. This particular shotgun I use for self-defense, and I like to carry it walking around the property in the evening and morning, especially this time of year. We've been finding a lot of bear scat out there. So it's a self-defense shotgun. It's real basic. This thing's about, I want to say it's about 11 years old. I bought it for under 300 bucks, and they're actually still out there for under 300 bucks. Before we get started, if you are liking my videos, if you're finding them helpful, please hit like and subscribe. We are a newer channel, so all the likes and subscribes we can get, if you're liking it, we do appreciate. If you have any comments, leave them down below. I try to answer as fast as possible. So, with that being said, let's get going. All right, so the first thing to do, as usual, is our safety check. We can look underneath here, inside the magazine tube. There's no rounds in there. Let's open up the action. We can see there's no round in the elevator, and there's no round in the chamber. So we are clear to get going. So I do have some dummy shotgun rounds here that I'll use as an example of how different parts work when we're done reassembling the gun. So the first thing you really want to do on the front of the magazine right here, there's a screw. And this just loosen this up. It screws right into the fore of the magazine. Once it's loose, give it a good pull, and you'll take the entire barrel off the firearm. That simple. These are really, really, really simple guns. Believe it or not, it's one pin, and then the whole gun starts to come apart. So let's grab a punch. Right here above the trigger is a pin that's holding the trigger group in. So the one thing I'm not going to do in this video is I'm not going to break down the entire trigger group. This is really more about disassembly for a good cleaning of the firearm and then reassembly of it. Typically, that pin just pushes right out. So take that out, put it to the side, and at this point, you can now pull the trigger group out. We'll put that aside since we're not really going to be working with that. Okay, so inside here, there's two bars along here that will fall out fairly easily on you. On the right side of the gun is the cartridge stop. So this is what holds a cartridge in the magazine, and it's studded. See a little stud right there, and like I said, they will, if you move it around a little bit, these bars are going to fall out. On reassembly, this one is on the left side of the gun. This is a cartridge interrupter. They're going to fall out when we're putting the gun back together. You're going to kind of have to hold them in place a little bit with your fingers as you put the trigger group back in. Not a real big deal. Just understand that one is studded, that one goes on the right side. There's a hole right here, that's where the stud fits. Those are out. So the next thing that we want to do is, let's push the action back. And we can go ahead and take the forearm assembly out. Oh no, we can't. Forgot about the bolt slide. We got to get the bolt slide out of here first, which just pops right up like that. Now we can take the forearm assembly and slide it off the magazine. That's out of the way. Then the next thing we have in here is really the bolt assembly and the elevator. Now if you pick the elevator up, you really have to just squeeze it a little bit because it has right here, as you can see, it's got notches too. Slide the bolt assembly forward, squeeze those, and there's our elevator. That's out. And then finally our bolt assembly can really come out right there through the front of the front of the gun. And there's our extractors. Those are what kick the shells out when you rack around. I mean, it's really that simple to take one of these down. At this point, you're ready for cleaning. Pretty easy, huh? All right, so putting it back together is pretty much just as easy as taking it apart. So this is our bolt assembly with the extractors. It will drop in the gun this way. And then our bolt slide, right here, our bolt slide, when we get it into the gun, will drop into the bolt assembly like this and lock in. And then once we get our foregrip back in place, these two notches will fit right here. And when you rack around, this is what slides the bolt back and forth. So the first thing we'll do is we'll just slide the bolt assembly into the gun. And then we're going to want to get the elevator in place. So before we push the bolt assembly back, we're going to just squeeze those tabs into place. You can see them, they popped into place on both sides. Your elevator's in place. Now we're going to take the whole bolt assembly and slide it back just about to the middle. So there's some cutouts here in the frame where the bolt slide kind of drops down, and then you work it into seating it in its proper place on the bolt assembly. So that's all back together now. At this point, we can put the forearm back on. We slide that onto the magazine. And then there's a couple of slots here in the front of the frame where these two rails are going to slide through. So we slide those through. You can't really see it as it comes through, but what it's going to do is you want to lift the bolt slide up just a little bit. So the foregrip, those bars go fit into the notches. So now, whoops, they fell out of the notches on me. Okay. Fighting me just a little bit. There we go. So now the bolt is sliding back and forth and lifting the elevator properly. So we want to bring this forward, and it slipped out again. There we go. Okay, so now we're going to get our cartridge stop bar in place, and that's the studded one. It sits on the right side of the gun. Left side is we're upside down, and that just kind of slides in place here, and you get the stud through the frame right there. Now these have a tendency to flop around a lot, so it's a little bit of, you got to fumble around with it a little bit. And then we have the the cartridge interrupter, and that fits on the left side of the gun right here. There we go. Now, if they want to cooperate, they'll stay in place. At this point, we're ready to put the trigger group back into the gun. And we do that by, there's a couple of notches here you can see in this cutout of the frame. It'll slide forward, and it should just pop right into place. And it could be the arms that are kind of holding it a little bit, and they are. So it's going to fight me. There we go. It popped right into place. Next thing we want to do is put our trigger assembly pin back in place. And it doesn't matter if you go left or right side. Some guns, like a Glock, I go left to right with the pins. This one, it doesn't really matter. You're going to have to wiggle the trigger group a little bit to get that pin in there. And then sometimes it takes just a little bit of pressure, not much. Just tap on it. Make sure they're flush on both sides. We got the trigger group back in. We got the bolt back in, the elevator back in. We'll do a function test. We can see everything's working perfect. Last thing to do is put the barrel back on. Now that just slides, open the action, it slides right in here, and then we rescrew it back onto the magazine. There we go. And our shotgun is 100% back together. Pretty easy. It's a pretty easy shotgun. Pretty comfortable to shoot. I'm a bigger dude. I'm 6'2", about 270, so I have no problem with this 24-inch barrel. My wife hates it. She's 5'1", buck 10. It's just too much for her. She'd rather shoot her 410s. Anyway, that is a Mossberg Maverick 88 disassembly, reassembly. And then the next thing I want to do is use some of the dummy rounds and show you how some of these pieces, what they're doing in here and what they're used for. So things like the cartridge interrupter and the cartridge stop. So let's get to that. Okay, so let's just talk about the functionality of the cartridge stop and the cartridge interrupter along with the elevator. So again, I've got these 12 gauge 3-inch dummy rounds. By the way, the Mossberg 88 takes 2 3/4 or 3-inch shells. So when you push that shell in, you can see the cartridge stop will hold that shell in the magazine. It pulls out of the way. If I were to push it down, that shell would pop out. So as it pushes the shell in there, it holds it into the magazine. Let's put a second round in, and it's going to hold your shells in the magazine. So what happens when you rack around, the elevator will come up and it's going to push the cartridge stop out of the way, and then the cartridge interrupter on the right side of the gun is going to fall forward and keep the next round from coming out of the magazine, so you don't get a double load. So as we do that, it's very hard to see, but the cartridge interrupter is in here now holding the next round in the magazine. Now that round will sit in the elevator, and as you come up, as you pull a foregrip forward, the cartridge will seat itself in the chamber. And then we turn it over, and we can see that the interrupter is pushed out of the way, and the stop is back in place holding the rounds in the magazine. That's really all there is to it. It's really simple concept. And it's actually it's a fun little shotgun for, under $300. So if you have any questions, leave them down below. If you have any comments, leave them down below. I'll try to answer them as best I can. Thanks for tuning in to Mike's Gun World. We're going to see you soon.